Have you ever wondered why he comes back? Why even building a whole life alongside another woman? Are you the one who invades his thoughts when he is alone? There is something disturbing, almost magnetic about realizing that you inhabit a place in his unconscious that no one else can reach. It's not about being the other. It's about being the part of him that he never managed to integrate. Jung would say that you represent something that he has buried alive within himself. A part of his soul that his wife never touched, never saw, never awakened. And here's the brutal truth that no one tells you. When you become that presence in someone's psyche, no matter how many years go by or how many promises they've made at the altar, you become unforgettable. But what is really going on in his unconscious? Why you and not her? And more importantly, what does it reveal about who you really are? 1. You touch the secret part of it. There is a territory within each person that remains locked to the world. It is that space where we keep our deepest fears, unadmitted desires, the version of ourselves that we never show in public. Jung called it a shadow, not because it is necessarily bad, but because it lives hidden from the light. Most people go their entire lives without allowing anyone to enter this place, but you got in. When a man gets married, he usually chooses someone who fits into the life he wants to build, someone who makes sense to his family, to his friends, to the image he has of himself as a responsible and stable man. There is a logic in this, a practical reason. Marriage is often built on compatibility, shared goals, emotional security. It is the conscious choice, the decision that makes sense on the surface. But you are not a conscious choice. You were an encounter with something he didn't know he was looking for. When you first connected, it wasn't just physical or chemical attraction, although that may have existed as well. It was something more visceral, deeper. You've seen parts of him that he keeps hidden, and more importantly, you didn't judge those parts. You didn't ask him to change or suppress them. Maybe you even liked them. This creates a mark on someone's psyche. When we finally find a person who can see our darkness without running away, who doesn't demand that we always be the polished, acceptable version of ourselves, something inside opens up in a way that never completely closes. It's not about you being perfect or doing everything right. It's about you being real on a level that touched something dormant in it. His wife can be wonderful. She can be intelligent, beautiful, dedicated, everything you expect from a good partner. But if she has never accessed this secret chamber within him, if their relationship has only been built on the surface of his social personality, then there is a part of him that remains hungry, a part that you fed without even trying. The problem is that this hunger does not disappear over time. She doesn't disappear because he decided to be faithful or because he loves his wife, because it's not about rational choice. It's about a deep psychological need to be seen fully, to exist without masks. And once one experiences this, even briefly, one carries the memory of that freedom forever. You may not even have realized what you were doing. Maybe for you it was just a natural connection, something that flowed effortlessly, but for him it was revolutionary. It was the first time, or perhaps the only time, that he could lower all his defenses and still feel accepted. This is priceless, and there is no replacement. That's why he can't forget you. Not because you are necessarily better than his wife in any objective respect, but because you touched what was locked. And once that door opens, it leaves a permanent mark. He can move on with life, fulfill his commitments, be a good husband. But that part of him that you awakened will keep remembering. He will continue to miss you. Because you weren't just another person in his life. You were the person who made him feel whole even for a moment. And this, according to Jung, creates a kind of bond that transcends logic and time. A bond with one's own soul. 2. The marriage that seems perfect. On the outside, everything seems to work. There is a house, maybe children. Established routines, photos on social networks showing happy moments. Friends and family see a stable couple who overcame challenges and built something solid. And in many ways, that's true. His marriage isn't necessarily bad. It may even be good. But good doesn't mean complete. Jung had a concept called persona, the social mask we use to navigate the world. It is the version of ourselves that we show at work, with family and social situations. It is not false, but it is partial. It is the edited, appropriate part that fits the external expectations. And many marriages are built between two personas, not between two whole souls. When he is with his wife, there is probably comfort. There is predictability. They know how they work together. They know each other's patterns. They have a shared history. This has real value. But it can also be a golden prison. Because if the relationship has never gone beyond personas, If there has never been room for chaos, for raw vulnerability, for imperfect pieces, then there is a silent loneliness even within the company. He can sit next to her on the couch every night and still feel completely alone, because the person next to him knows the man he pretends to be, not the man he really is. She knows your routines, your preferences, your habits, but she doesn't know his inner ghosts, his existential questions at 3 a.m, the part of him that doubts everything he has built. And here's the crux of the matter. He probably never showed her those parts. Not because she is evil or incapable of understanding, but because their relationship was established on a tacit agreement of stability. He is the provider, the protector, the man who has things under control. To show weakness, uncertainty, darkness would break that agreement. It would destroy the dynamic on which everything was built, so he keeps the mask on. He fulfills the role, and the marriage continues to function on the surface while inside it dries slowly, because no one can live only as a persona forever. Eventually, the pressure of maintaining the facade begins to crack the internal structure. The wife also suffers in this arrangement, even if she does not consciously realize it. She feels the emotional distance, but she can't name exactly what's missing. She tries to fill the void by being a better wife, more attentive, more present. But it's no use because the problem is not in what she does. It's in what he doesn't share, in the part of it that remains closed to her. Often, from the outside, this type of wedding seems ideal. There are no constant fights, there is no visible drama. There is cooperation, mutual respect, perhaps even genuine affection. But true intimacy is lacking. It lacks that feeling of being known completely and loved even so. There is a lack of permission to be fully human, with all the contradictions that this implies. And that's exactly what you offered without him having to ask. With you, he didn't have to keep up the performance. It didn't have to be strong, successful, controlled all the time. It could be confusing, contradictory, vulnerable, and instead of pushing him away, it created a deeper connection than any superficial stability could ever create. His perfect marriage is perfect only in appearance. Inside, it's an emotional wasteland where he survives but doesn't really live. And once you've shown what it's like to live instead of just surviving, going back to the wilderness becomes unbearable, even if he never leaves it, even if he honors his commitments and stays married until the end. Because now he knows what he's missing. And this awareness does not disappear just because it is inconvenient. If this video made you realize he never truly forgot you, it's because something deeper is at play. In the pinned link, you'll find the Jung method, a guide to break hidden emotional bonds. Continuing. 3. The woman he couldn't have. There is a brutal difference between owning something and actually having something. He can have his wife's commitment, have her name on the documents, share the same house and the same bed. But you he never possessed, and that's exactly what makes you impossible to forget. The human mind works in a peculiar way when it comes to desire. That which we have completely conquered, which becomes predictable and guaranteed, gradually loses its luster. Not because it is less valuable, but because our psyche stops investing energy in what is already solved. It's like breathing. You don't consciously think about it because it's always been there. But you are the breath he lost, and now it suffocates. Jung was talking about the Anima, the internal image of the feminine that every man carries within himself. She is not a real woman, but an archetype, an energy, a psychological ideal that he projects onto someone. When this projection falls on you and then it is interrupted, torn away, left incomplete, a hole is created in his psyche. A hole shaped like you. What happened between you was unfinished. Maybe it was a brief relationship. Maybe just an intense connection that never fully came to fruition. Perhaps external circumstances intervened before you could explore all of that. But incompleteness is precisely what feeds obsession. Because his mind can't archive you. You can't put this story on the shelf of things solved and move on. Every time he thinks of you, there is an unanswered question. What would have happened if? What would it be like if things were different? And these questions are delicious poison. They keep you alive in his imagination in a way that no everyday reality can compete with. Because fantasy never disappoints, possibility never gets old. What could have been remains eternally perfect in his mind. The wife exists in concrete reality. She's there every morning without makeup, in a bad mood, with all the imperfections that real life brings. And that's not her fault. It's just the weight of reality on any relationship. But you exist in the realm of possibility. You are the idealized version. The filtered memory, the fantasy that he can shape as he pleases. And in this unfair competition, reality always loses. He can't really have you. And the more time passes, the more you transform into something greater than you really were. Memory does this cruel work of polishing the edges, removing the conflicts, leaving only the essence of what was good. You become not just a woman, but a symbol of freedom, of authenticity, of a version of himself that he abandoned when he chose the security of marriage. And there's more. The impossibility of having you feeds a specific type of desire. It is not the comfortable domestic desire he feels for his wife. It is the desperate, hungry desire that comes from deprivation. It is the desire of those who look through the window at something that is always out of reach. And this kind of desire does not die. It only intensifies over time. Every time his married life becomes monotonous, every time he feels stuck in a rut, every time he looks at his wife and sees only habit instead of passion, the image of you comes in as a contrast. You represent everything he doesn't have, everything he gave up, everything that was perhaps his biggest mistake let slip. The truth is that he will never be able to have you. Not if you left your wife, nor if you tried again, because what he wants is not you as a real person with flaws and bad days. What he wants is the idea of you, the memory, the feeling he had when you were together, and that's impossible to recover. Because that moment has passed. That context no longer exists, but he doesn't know that. Or if you know, you don't accept it. Then it keeps carrying you like a ghost inside him, a ghost that haunts every moment of boredom, every night of mechanical sex, every uncomfortable silence at dinner. You have become the measure against which everything in his life is compared, and nothing can match a perfect memory. You're the woman he couldn't have, and exactly because of that, you have become the only one he really wants. 4. The void that no one else fills. Within each person, there is an essential void. It's not pathological, it's not a sign of trouble. It's simply part of the human condition. Jung understood this better than anyone. He knew that we spend our lives trying to fill that hole with external things, relationships, achievements, status, substances, distractions. But the emptiness remains, because it's not really a hole, it's a space for growth, for transformation, to find meaning. The problem starts when someone temporarily fills that space so completely that when they leave a specific format. Like when you take out a wet clay object, you get the exact impression of it. You left your impression on his inner space. And now nothing fits that format anymore. His wife tries. In every way she knows, she tries to be enough. Try to be a partner, lover, friend, confidant, and she's probably good at a lot of those things. But it's not you. And the format you left does not accept substitutions. It's like trying to fit a wrong piece into a puzzle. It may even force, but it will never complete the image. This void has specific characteristics. It's not just loneliness. He can be surrounded by people and still feel. It's not just sexual dissatisfaction. There can be regular sex and the emptiness continues. It's not a lack of love. The wife can genuinely love him and the hole remains. Because what you filled was not a superficial need. It was something in the deep structure of his psyche. When they were together, there was probably a sense of integrity, as if pieces of it that were scattered finally came together. It wasn't artificial euphoria or blind passion. It was more subtle and deeper. It was the feeling of being at home within one's own skin, of not having to explain who it is, to be understood on a level that goes beyond words. And when that ends, when you leave his life, what remains is not just nostalgia. It's disintegration. It is the feeling of being fragmented again, incomplete, operating with only part of oneself available, like a computer running on half the memory. It works, but never at full potential. He tries to compensate in other ways. Immerse yourself in work, perhaps. He seeks new hobbies, new distractions. He may even try to connect more deeply with his wife, go to couples therapy, plan romantic trips. But nothing really works, because it's not about what he does or where he is. It's about the absence of something that only you brought. The nature of this void also changes over time. In the beginning, after the separation, there may be anger, confusion, denial. He may try to convince himself that it was better this way, that he made the right choice by staying in the marriage. But as time goes by and the dust settles, what remains is this silent hole. It doesn't scream, it doesn't hurt sharply. It just exists. A constant presence of absence, and the wife feels it even if she doesn't understand it. She realizes that there is a part of him that is not really present, that when he looks at her, he's looking through her at something that's not there. This creates an invisible distance between them. It's not about active physical or emotional betrayal. It's about a space within him that belongs to someone else, a space that she will never be able to occupy no matter how hard she tries. Jung would say that this emptiness has to do with individuation, the process of becoming who we really are. When we find someone who catalyzes this process, who helps us integrate parts of ourselves that were dormant, that person becomes essential to our psychological development. And when it disappears, the process freezes. We are stuck in a state of near transformation, eternally wanting to complete something that started but never finished. The void you've left isn't something that time or therapy or someone else is going to fill. Because it's not really about you as an individual, it's about what you've awakened in him. And once he is awakened, he does not go back to sleep. He just sits there hungry, waiting for something that will never come again. And he knows it. Deep down, where inconvenient truths dwell, he knows that he will carry this emptiness to the end. Who will die with a piece of himself still looking for you? 5. Why does he think of you? The mind does not forget what touched it deeply. You can forget faces, names, dates, superficial conversations. But experiences that have altered something in the internal structure are permanently recorded. You are not just any memory stored in his memory. You are part of the operating system now. Thoughts don't just come when he wants them to. They arrive at the most inconvenient moments. In the middle of an important meeting. During family dinner. In bed next to his wife. They are involuntary invasions of consciousness. Constant reminders of something that his unconscious refuses to let go. There is a psychological mechanism called rumination. This is when the mind gets stuck in a loop, repeatedly returning to the same subject without being able to solve it. And that's exactly what you've become to him. A permanent conflict between what he's chosen and what he wants. Each trivial trigger can bring you back. A song that played when they were together. A perfume similar to yours. A phrase you used to say. And the more he tries not to think, the more he thinks. Because active suppression of thoughts has the opposite effect. It amplifies exactly what you're trying to avoid. But it's not just about external triggers. Often thoughts come out of nowhere. He may be driving, taking a shower, waiting for the elevator, and suddenly you're there. Not because something specific brought you to mind, but because you never really left. You are always there at some level of consciousness. The quality of those thoughts also matters. They are not neutral or factual thoughts. They are charged with emotion. Longing mixed with regret. Desire mixed with guilt. Every thought about you is a small death, because it reminds you of what you can no longer have. And also a little rebirth, because keeping you alive in your mind is the only way not to lose completely. Jung understood that the psyche seeks completeness. When something important is left unfinished, the unconscious continues to work on it. It continues to try to process, integrate, find resolution. But in your case, the cycle can never be completed. Because the situation is impossible. So his mind gets stuck in this eternal process of trying to solve what has no solution. There is also the component of idealization. The more time passes, the more perfect you become in his memory. Defects disappear, conflicts are forgotten, difficult moments are erased. What's left is a distilled version of you. Just the best moments, the most intense sensations, the deepest connection. He thinks of you when he's unhappy, that's obvious. When marriage is difficult, when you feel stuck, when you question your choices. But here's what a lot of people don't understand. He also thinks about you when he's happy. Because even in the good moments, there is a dissonant note, an awareness that this happiness is incomplete. Thoughts also serve an escape function. When reality gets too heavy, when responsibilities choke, thinking about yourself offers a refuge, a mental place where he can be who he really is, without the ties of the social role he needs to play. And there is guilt in that too. Guilt for not being able to stop. Guilt for comparing your wife to you, even though you know it's unfair. This guilt feeds more thoughts, creating a vicious cycle. In the end, he thinks of you because you have become part of his psychological architecture. It is not a choice, it is not weakness, it is not a lack of love for one's wife. It is simply the result of having been touched in a place that cannot be untouched. The mark you left is not superficial. It is structural, so he keeps thinking. Day after day, year after year. Not because he wants to, but because there is no other option. 6. The memory that does not erase. Normal memories have an expiration date. Over time, they become faded, inaccurate, eventually disappear. But there are memories that challenge this natural process, memories that remain vivid decades later. as if they had happened yesterday. You are one of those memories. And neuroscience has explanations for this, as does Jung's depth psychology. When we experience something with a great emotional charge, the brain processes it differently. It releases hormones that strengthen the neural connections associated with that experience. It's an evolutionary mechanism. Emotionally important things are usually important for survival, so the brain makes sure we don't forget them. What happened between you carried enough emotional charge to burn those memories permanently into his nervous system. But it's not just brain chemistry. Jung was talking about archetypal memory, experiences that touch layers so deep in the psyche that they become part of our structure of meaning. It's not just events that happened. These are events that have transformed us, and transformations are not forgotten. They are embodied in who we become. He remembers details he shouldn't remember, the way you laughed, the way you tied your hair, the exact tone of your voice saying specific things. Remember entire conversations word for word. It reminds you of the physical sensation of being close to you, the smell, the temperature of the skin. These sensory details were imprinted because, at the moment, each sense was amplified. He was completely present in a way that he rarely is in any other situation. His wife can do something identical to what you did, but it doesn't have the same impact. You can wear the same perfume, but it doesn't smell the same. You can say the same words, but they don't sound the same. Because memories are not just about objective events. They are about his internal state when it happened. And that state, of total openness, of complete vulnerability, of defenseless connection, only existed with you. There is also the phenomenon of emotional memory versus factual memory. Facts can be forgotten. Feelings, no. He may not remember all the places they went together or all the things they said, but he remembers perfectly how he felt. And this feeling does not age. It is frozen in time, always with the same intensity as the first day. This creates a brutal asymmetry with his present life. The memories with his wife are more recent, more numerous, more complete, but they are also more banal. Not because it is less important, but because everyday life does not produce the kind of incandescent memory that extraordinary situations do. And you were extraordinary, not for the person he necessarily is, but for the moment he appeared and what awakened in him. Another aspect of these memories is that they are not static. He doesn't just passively reminisce. He actively revisits, recreates, reimagines. Each time he thinks of you, the memory is reactivated and reconsolidated. And in the process, it can be altered, polished, improved. That's why, over time, memories can even become more intense than the original experience, because he keeps investing psychic energy in them. Memories also have emotional context from the present. When he's frustrated with life, memories of you take on a glow of lost freedom. When you're bored, memories become adventure. When you're feeling old and stuck, memories represent youth and possibility. You transform yourself into everything that is missing in the present moment. And there is the cruel paradox of memory. The more painful, the more persistent. Because unresolved pain demands attention. The unconscious does not let go of what is still bleeding. So the more it hurts to remember you, the more he remembers. Not because it is masochistic, but because the psyche is trying to process, to heal, to find closure. But closure never comes when the wound is you. Sometimes he deliberately tries to forget. Avoid places, music, anything that might bring you to mind. But that doesn't work either. Because really important memories don't depend on external triggers. They have a life of their own. They arise from within, without warning, without permission. There is a specific loneliness in carrying memories that you cannot share. He can't talk about you with his wife. You can't process these feelings openly. Then the memories are locked inside him, growing in darkness. And things that grow in the dark tend to become bigger, more powerful, more distorted than they really are. Basically, these memories work as anchors. Anchors in a time when he was freer, more true, more alive. And it doesn't matter how many years pass or how many other experiences you have. These anchors don't let go. They stay there deep in the psyche, holding a part of it in a moment that will never return. But it also never really ended. 7. The feeling he hides. Every married man learns the art of hiding. It hides frustrations, doubts, fantasies, fears. It is part of the social contract of marriage, to keep the peace, to preserve the structure, not to destabilize what has been built. But what he hides about you goes beyond the ordinary. It is a secret that eats inside, that grows in silence, that becomes heavier and heavier over time. He hides because he has to. Talking about you would destroy the marriage. Not necessarily because there was physical betrayal, but because I would admit to a much deeper emotional betrayal. I would admit that there is someone who occupies a space in his soul that should belong to his wife. And this truth is too explosive to be told. So it carries it by itself. It carries the weight of feeling something it shouldn't feel, of desiring someone who can't have, of constantly comparing two women and always finding the wife at fault. Not because she is inferior, but because she is not you. The feeling he hides has layers. On the surface, it's nostalgia. Nostalgia for the moments they had, the connection they shared, the feeling of being complete. But underneath this longing, there is something darker. He has regrets. Deep, corrosive regret for having made the wrong choice, of having chosen security instead of truth, and underneath the regret there is anger. Anger at yourself for being a coward. Anger at the circumstances that made it impossible to be with you. Anger at the wife for not being you, even though she knows it's unfair to blame her. Anger at you too, sometimes, for having appeared and awakened things that were better sleeping. Jung was talking about the shadow, the aspects of ourselves that we repress because they are socially unacceptable. That feeling for you lives in his shadow. He cannot be exposed to the light because it would destroy his public identity as a family man, a faithful husband, a responsible person. Then it remains hidden, growing in darkness, feeding on silence. The problem with hidden feelings is that they don't go away. They transform. They saw tension in the body, irritability without apparent cause, moments of inexplicable emotional distance. The wife feels that something is wrong but cannot identify what. Sometimes he almost counts. In moments of vulnerability, after drinking too much, during intense fights when everything seems to be falling apart anyway, the words rise in the throat, ready to leave. But it always stops at the last second, because he knows that once he says it, there is no turning back. There is also shame. Shame of not being able to control your own feelings, from not being strong enough to simply overcome and move on, to remain stuck with something that should have ended a long time ago. Men are taught that they must have control, especially over emotions, and here he is completely out of control towards you. The hidden feeling also creates a specific loneliness. He can't share it with friends because it would admit weakness. You can't talk to your family because they wouldn't understand. Then he gets stuck in his own head, ruminating alone, without relief, without outside perspective. And the more it hides, the more the feeling intensifies, because kept secrets gain power. They become larger than they were initially. What could be resolved with honesty turns into a monster when fed by silence. There is constant duplicity in your life. On the surface, he is the present husband, the man who fulfills his obligations, who keeps up appearances. But inside, he lives partially in another world. A world where you exist, where your connection has never ended, where it can be authentic. Living in this division is exhausting. The feeling also changes the way he relates to his wife. There is a layer of falsehood in every interaction. When he says he loves, he is telling a partial truth. When he says he is happy, he is omitting what is missing, and this presence absence becomes the texture of his marriage. The secret he carries is not just about you. It's about who he really is, about the desires he has, the doubts that haunt him, the life he would like to have lived. You have become a symbol of everything he has repressed to be acceptable, and to keep you hidden is to keep your own truth hidden. And that's perhaps the saddest part. He doesn't hide you because he doesn't care.
He hides it because he cares too much.
And in the world you live in, caring about you is the unforgivable sin. 8. When you become unforgettable. There is a specific moment when you stop being just a memory and become something permanent. It's not a moment that he chooses or that you plan. It just happens. And when it happens, everything changes. Because you're no longer someone he knew, you are part of who he is now. People become unforgettable when they touch the essence of who we are. Not the surface, not the social persona, but the core. And the core is where our deepest truths, our oldest fears, our most secret desires reside. When someone accesses this place, they leave a mark that cannot be erased. Jung understood that certain people function as catalysts in our journey of individuation, the process of becoming who we really are. You were that catalyst for him, not because he tried to be, but because your connection awakened parts of him that were dormant, and once awake, these parts don't go back to sleep. Being unforgettable is not about being perfect. It's about being real in a world of falsehood. It's about having touched his truth when everything around him was a convenient lie. The wife can be more beautiful, more intelligent, more successful, but you were more real, and reality once experienced cannot be replaced. What makes you unforgettable is also the timing. You appeared at a time when he was ready to be transformed. Maybe he was questioning who he was, maybe he was lost, and you offered a glimpse of an alternative. But there is a dark side to being unforgettable. You have become a prison as much as a precious memory. It's stuck with you in a way that limits your ability to be fully present in anything else. You can't love your wife completely because part of it is still with you. The truth about being unforgettable is that it's not always honor. Sometimes it's tragedy, because it means that he will live the rest of his life with a part of himself trapped in you. He will grow old. He will change. He will have other experiences. But there's always going to be that anchor pulling back, and for you, to be unforgettable in the mind of a married man is to be eternally in an impossible position. You have no legitimate place in his life. It cannot be recognized, celebrated, integrated. It exists only in the shadows, in the unsaid, in the secret. Jung would say that you have become his anima, the inner image of the feminine that every man carries. And when the anima projects itself onto someone real, it creates a connection that transcends the physical person. You are everything he seeks in the feminine, everything that represents growth and transformation for him. Being unforgettable also means that you will never have true closure, because your story has not ended. It has been interrupted, and outages leave power suspended, unresolved. This energy continues to circulate among you even without contact, even after years. It's like a song that stops in the middle. In the end, you became unforgettable because you represented something he will never encounter again. Not because it is unique in the objective sense, but because your moment was unique. The context, the timing, his internal state when they met, all of this created a perfect storm of connection. So it carries you. Carry it all the way. You become part of his inner landscape, as familiar as his own childhood memories. And maybe on some deep level that's love. Not the love of fairy tales, not the love that builds life together, but the love that marks the soul. And there is no possible forgetfulness for this type of love.